I don't know, man. All I know is that he said he was back, and it's been months. It's been months. I'm just saying. Maybe he really is dead this time.
Jesus, he's shorter than I thought.
Vash, baby, long time no see. How about that Ori video, bud?
Is this an After Effects comp? Vash?
Jesus, dude, it was a fucking joke.
NieR! Oh god, don't hurt me! NieR is good, the curse is broken! NieR is good, the curse is broken! Oh yeah!
The curse is broken. The curse is broken.
Woo!
The curse is broken.
Damn!
The curse is broken.
I don't want to play this fucking game. Get that shit away from me. Don't hand me get the control out of my hands. I don't want to play your fucking legal garbage.
Oh my lord, why did this take so fucking long? But hey, all I'm saying, the game is good. The game is good.
Why does any girl need to be that thick for it?
And holy moly, Automata didn't just break the curse. No. It dragged the poor fucker out back and ripped it like a goddamn Beyblade. You need to play this game. If you haven't already put hands on NieR Automata, fix that shit, B. Automata isn't perfect, far from it, but give it the time it deserves. Make time for the side quests, for the exploration, for the world that Taro and Platinum have crafted for you, and hopefully you'll connect with Automata. Because you see, if I gave numbered scores, Automata would be a 10. But realize that that score is so heavily colored by my experience with this game that whilst I can acknowledge any fault that Automata has, I really don't give a shit that those problems exist. With that said, everything past this point is full story and gameplay spoilers, so, yeah.
Get the fuck out!
We're starting with the combat, prepare to get heated. Although Automata's move list isn't the largest, this is, by far, Platinum's most intentionally open and disconnected system to date. NieR Automata has taken the focus away from building dial combos carried by offset mechanics, and has refocused it on building custom combos carried by position shifting cancels and weapon swapping. The 6 move lists, which is really more like 12 or 18 depending on how you count things, each carry their own string of button combos, presses, holds, and early releases that are largely up to you to piece together, in a way that feels much closer to a Devil May Cry than to a Bayonetta, except Automata's system is far simpler, far slower, and carrying a lot more red tape. That's not really a big deal, though. My issue, though, is that while Platinum are continuing to step out of their comfort zone, and in so doing presenting a toolkit with some assembly required, the rest of the game doesn't really seem to give a shit. Enemies in Automata cut a wide swath conceptually, from humanoids to helicopter blades. I think my ex makes an appearance at some point. They came up with a lot of different ideas for the machines. I just wish they were more proud of that. Small springs and medium bipeds, although variant rich, make up an overwhelming majority of Automata's enemy waves. And whilst their body types tend to work best for action games, these guys are so fucking boring. There's no intense movements, no fast-acting gap closers, there's no crazy startup animations between them, mostly. And that standard bleeds into the unique enemy types. You seen one, you seen them all. They're way too immobile to make for decent fights, and I think Platinum knew this, trying to avoid smaller engagements in lieu of larger armies. And while we're still talking about enemies, the bosses? Automata's bosses can be separated into 2 camps. We got set pieces, and then we got combo fodder. I can't wait. Set pieces comprise your Goliath-class machines, and they all share a similar profile.
Big dude.
Big dude does the big shit. Definitely do not get hit by the big shit. But while you're not getting hit by the big shit, you gotta use little shit to chip away at big dude. Big dude is actually giant enemy crab, has weak point, will reveal weak point depending on where you hit big dude. But usually, the big dude could give a fuck about you. So imagine a game where you're not styling on the big dude, but rather you're styling on his fucking health bar. There's strats, certainly, that help the big bar go down a little bit quicker, but I call them set pieces for a reason. Whether it's their rigid scripting, their HP gating, or general aversion to hit stun, much of the natural call and response of a larger boss fight, it gets tossed away with nothing of substance to trade for. And the situation doesn't really improve if you scale it down. Automata's humanoid bosses run like a flowchart. At the beginning of the flowchart sits a question: can the boss be raw launched? If yes, do an air combo and fit in a blade activation to maintain the combo while you reground and mash attacks. If the boss doesn't take the launch, then either mash attacks or counter, preferably with the launcher until the boss takes the launch, then you air combo, then you convert with blade or slow, and then you get the idea. I need you to repeat this process until the boss is either dead or it enters a phase that is basically a set piece. Yeah, these fights are cool on a first playthrough, but the more files I create and the more I experiment with them, the more I just end up mashing light attack and spamming counters until it's over. And you'd be surprised just how far spamming will get you in this game. With enemies appearing in bulk and attacking in staggered timings, your safest and most effective solution is to use AoE. So you're pulling from pod cooldowns, charge attacks, and counters. Oh, the counter is way too useful. With its low execution barrier, the fucking damage output, the scale of the AoE, and the fact that it has no cooldown, and with that kind of toolset, you really don't have much of a window of opportunity to use the game's single target combo suite. I'm also willing to bet that the counter is the scapegoat that justifies Automata's enemy waves being ant colonies of springs and bipeds. Platinum are much more comfortable to overwhelm you when they know you have a one-button solution to 90% of the problems you'll encounter, provided of course that the game's RPG systems don't dick you. It's because there is something well and truly fucked about the way this game is balanced. And look, I can deal with the random one-touches on hard mode. I really can. What I can't deal with, though, is the balance decision that dings enemies for 2/3 of their health per counter launcher when the enemy is at or slightly below my level, whilst also doing this stupid thing where if the enemy is like 5 or more levels higher than me, or they just fucking don't feel like it, then they're going to ignore any natural hit stun that I throw at them. Why? Whose fucking call was this? I want a list of names. I want to know who looked at everything Automata's system has to offer, from launcher setups, mid-range combo options, charge attacks, cancel options, its breadth of moveless combinations, and said, yeah, nobody's gonna miss this. Whose mans thought it was a good idea to turn an over-leveled enemy into a fucking Goliath fight? Let's ignore the wasted opportunity of using the larger health pools for longer combos naturally. My problem is a little more fundamental. What's fun about being the statistical underdog when your enemies don't care about what you're doing, just carrying on their attacks like they don't give a fuck? Or what's fun about enemies dying so quickly that you can't strut your stuff? But that's what Automata's stats nets this combat system. You get an active hassle to find a sweet spot where enemies are taking launches consistently without dying too quickly, but at the same time trying to work around the natural progression of enemy level caps to reduce the chances of running into enemies that won't take hit stun. And when you throw all these ingredients into the same pot and you stir it for a little bit, I'm not gonna lie, the fucking combat bled together after a while. It's not unfun, mostly. It's not clunky to control, and it doesn't put me to sleep necessarily, but it's just functional. It's ultimately serviceable. See, when I take a step back and look at it all, I see NieR going to war with itself. A playthrough or two of Automata is like a window into what a fun, playable identity crisis looks like, where Platinum are still struggling to make combat systems driven by experience, by practice, by execution, that still has to find a need for percentage-based stats builds, that's trying to skew enemy level caps to punish a lack of side questing and exploration, whilst also trying to lower execution barriers and declaw enemy AI to keep itself easy and accessible to those not familiar with traditional action games. All of these goals, all of this shit together, it's viciously fighting for supremacy. It's not in agreeance with itself. And do not at me about these fucking combo mats. I don't care.
Oh, but, you know, Vash, have you peeped
The Donguri combo mats? Have you seen this video called Some Cute Shit? And look, okay, you know, yeah, I've been said about Devil May Cry 4 for actual years now. There's a difference between what your mechanics allow for in a vacuum versus what your enemy and enemy wave design actually uses. And whilst I like Automata's move list in a vacuum, I do not agree that its best elements shine through in regular play. And that's why I don't use scores when talking about games, because I stand by my statement. Gun to my head, Automata's a 10 out of 10. Because the combat on its own is just another thing. A vignette that, if you ease up on the feathering, reveals all of these other items of equivalent to greater quality, that when put together bring you into a wonderful world filled with lovable, diverse characters. When it comes to stories, I'm typically more interested in characters than in plot. It's a very good problem to have when you're playing a Yoko Taro game, because my mans knows how to write a character. I'm gonna break this one down pretty simply for you. 9S did nothing wrong. Whether it's his attachment to other androids, the way he'll complain about the work he's doing as he's doing it. He's just this little goof. He's Curious Georging his way through the world, meeting new people, confronting new concepts, those of family, revenge, remorse, being a NEET, all on his quest to find love and acceptance. Oh, there's just no way he was ready for the world he was stepping into. It's fascinating to see 9S intake new information, whether it's about his fellow Yorha units or about machine life forms, and to see the ways that he'll struggle with conflicts of information, like his bias towards machines and how that bleeds into his dialogue. In Routes A and B, he speaks from a position of intellectual and emotional superiority. The machines are just that, pre-programmed things that lack any free will or agency. Even when he finds Pascal's village, all waving that white flag, all preaching peace, he thinks it's a trap, only to turn right around and comfort a lost little girl that without that bow, he may have taken for an enemy. It's interesting to see him say one thing and do another. It's humanizing in a way. But then we gotta take all these things. We gotta put them in a bundle. We gotta put them in a pile. Let's take 9S. What makes him who he is? And then let's just fucking ruin all of it. Humans?
They're dead!
The fucking bunker was an inside job, and even the basis for his prejudice against the machines flies out the window as soon as that machine leaves the network. His operator becomes a battle unit and eventually goes missing in action, a situation that he deals with firsthand. And then there's 2B. Whoops. Others have referred to 9S as an edgelord. They're not wrong, but having followed his decay as a character, I get it. I think it's completely understandable. His reasons to get out of bed in the morning are casually taken from him one by one over the span of a couple of days. Tops. From his perspective, he had things he could blame, and a fucking death laser. How would you react? But that is why I love him so much. He starts out so innocently. He's walking me through my options menu, he's slipping me hard drugs, he's copping a crisp feel every now and again. But more than that, he just outwardly valued the lives of other androids, even machine life forms when he got right down to it. In fact, he's pretty much down to help anything that doesn't try to kill him first. He's a kinder soul, built up and reinforced throughout his side quests, just so something of value is lost when he finally snaps. Other characters will share 9S's depth to different degrees, but like I said, Automata's greatness isn't held down to any one thing. Automata's overworld, that shit's like the perfect size. The city ruins is weirdly homey, in the sense that I was able to internalize the position of the game's many zones so quickly that after a few hours, I didn't even need the map to get around. Oh, but baby boo, we are not talking world building unless we are talking that soundtrack. Keiichi Okabe and his team Monica have quite possibly some of the highest acclaim in a market that is drowning in amazing soundtracks. And I'm happy to report that Automata sits loud and proud amongst that lineup, perhaps even eclipsing their previous work. In an interview, Okabe said that his goal for the original NieR soundtrack was to represent the emotions and thoughts of his characters sonically, and Automata's soundtrack shares that emotional awareness. Much like the original NieR and Drakengard 3, there are various versions of a single track that feature more or less dense instrumentation relative to the the intensity of the moment. With this type of building block mentality where vocals or portions of the orchestra will be absent from the song until you either enter combat or reach the center of a settlement, giving a zone a recognizable theme represented in its core melody with differing emotions associated with those melodies. But Monika's ability to step up the aggression of their composition whilst working with the same kind of cultural, acoustic instrumentation and singing that made up much of the original NieR soundtracks shows a clear progression. A progression that can keep up with Platinum's combat and sense of flair, whilst bringing in some of the lessons learned with the Drakengard 3 soundtrack, composing around scripted set pieces in a way that sees the soundtrack conducting the combat. So it's working at its best when you're listening to it in-game rather than listening on your phone. And that's something I can say for Automata in general. Combat shortcomings aside, this isn't the type of game that would be better off as a visual novel or a movie. It's something that you need to do for yourself, and a lot of that comes down to pedigree. This is a true dream team collaboration. On the one hand, you have Platinum with their storied history of attention to mechanical detail, their focus on polish, their embrace of player growth through intentional mechanical depth, working now with Taro through his use of optional narrative elements, multiple playthroughs, weapon stories, side quests, and hidden text logs that give you the tools to piece together the story at your pace, where what you're lacking is just as important as what you're interpreting, so that character motivations or backstory have the opportunity to become personal. Like Biavois. On a first playthrough, you're really not given enough info to have an idea of how she got to where she was. You don't even know she's off the network until Pascal tells you, so the rest of her backstory is a mystery until your second playthrough, and that gives you enough time to make assumptions. So the game has the potential to surprise you when you read about how desperate she was, her series of body modifications, her road to getting baited into attacking and eating androids, and whether that meshes or comes into conflict with your personal guessing game helps make Biavois' connection to Sartre something that you learn, and that's what it's all about. Taro and his connections to Monika as well as Platinum, they all get players, but it goes deeper than that. Both Taro and Platinum share this type of self-aware confidence that knows what you love and knows how to give you more. And when these forces collide, that's where Automata comes into its own. Not a Taro project, not a Platinum game, but something in the middle. Route C captures this perfectly. That long string of just horrible shit that happens to Pascal's village, where out of nowhere, just when it seems like you're about to lose the kids, Pascal he fucking pops up, controlling like, one of what has to be like 80 ocean Goliaths. But that doesn't matter. The boy is going in. The setup, the framing, the deep fighting game mechanics, I swear, if they could have snuck a Platinum logo in there, they would have. And after all that terrible, to have a moment of unambiguous triumph and hype, and now all you gotta do is check on the kids to confirm the save. Oh no. Oh god, there is so much happening in this scene. And to close it all out with the decision to either kill Pascal, erase his memory, which is basically the same as killing him as far as I'm concerned, or to abandon him. Let him wander to parts unknown, to die to machines, androids, or himself. This is the death of Pascal's village, and it can take on even more meaning if, like me, you accepted the quest to get toys for the kids but didn't finish it before the attack. Then those kids never got their slip and slide before they were wined and dined. It's fucking terrible. And that's Automata. The game is dotted with sequences just like this one, where the gameplay is just smooth, punchy, and expressive enough to get you excited and happy. The emotions of a well-executed Platinum set piece become part of the emotional roller coaster, building you up high, just so you fall that much further when it's all kicked out from under you. And then there's the man behind the sadness. Taro, as a writer, tends to get a sort of a two-pronged synopsis. The guy's a fucking weirdo, and he likes seeing bad things done to good people. And like, yeah, I get it, that's not necessarily wrong, but I kind of feel like that sells him short. Taro's never had a history of hiding from moments that many writers or directors would either be too embarrassed or too afraid to show in full. And I think that's why his stories do so well emotionally. Let's say you wipe Pascal's memory. What happens to him? He goes back to his village, but everyone is dead, torn to scraps and spare parts by the cannibal attack. If you approach him there, he greets you happily and remarks that he's happened upon all of this junk, becoming a vendor for the various machine parts that serve as upgrade materials. And even though 9S has no clue what's going on, you do. And to me, that's Taro at his best, to have a horrible yet plausible incident befall a beloved character, to think that process out fully, and to not shy away from how dark and horrifying the result truly is. But that also makes the bright moments of Automata, of which there are so many, feel honest and complete. And with that, I have to talk about Ending E. Bullet hell's never really been my thing, so Automata's hacking minigames introduced me to the genre. And over my playthroughs, I got to see myself grow, from failing larger movements and less complicated patterns to single stick flicks in the middle of dense patterns. And by Ending E, I was starting to see the precision in it all, until I hit a wall. You know, this isn't the first time that a player has been walled by Square Enix, and it was all downhill from there. Eventually dying enough to see a prompt to connect to the network, failing again, I started to see messages from other players encouraging me to keep going even though I was way out of my depth. And it was just as I started to go on tilt that I was offered a helping hand. Expecting a mid-fight res, I took it. And what came next was a wreath of little ships just like mine, shielding me and fighting with me. You know, Ending E is exactly why I'm happy I didn't stream this game, because as soon as these ships appeared and that choir got going, I fucking broke. I took full damage. Man, I cried like a little bitch. And I don't give a fuck who knows it. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna fucking judge me? Fuck you. You know, video gamey is a term thrown around from time to time, usually in a negative way, but honestly I don't think Ending E could happen in any other medium. Name anything other than a video game where you connect to PlayStation Network to team up with the save data from your fellow players to beat the credits, where the soundtrack features the entire dev team singing along to the credits theme. Where are you gonna find that? In fact, you know, where are you gonna find that type of love? The mechanics of the bullet hell don't change, it just gets really hard. The stress and challenge of this segment is yours and yours alone. This is now your quest to save the characters. This is now your quest to get your happy ending, with its own little branching paths. You can try, you can fail, and you can unite. You can work with other players who have come before you, and in so doing, deal with one of Automata's core themes, that of family and togetherness. That when you struggle, you pull through as a team, or you deal with these challenges on your own, and get roped into your own story of individual capability, struggle, learning, growth, and success, or you just give up. The happy ending isn't worth the hassle. And you know, when I look back on why I chose to give up my save data, even though that decision definitely held back production on this very video, not like it fucking mattered, I think I gave it up as a way to give back. I made a very personal connection in Ending E. When I think about it, anything I've done in my fucking life, whether it was choir, content production, writing, any of the games I've learned and practiced over the years, virtually any skill I've developed, even the job I have right now, I've never gotten to where I was completely on my own. I've had guidance, I've had help from peers at nearly every turn, people sacrificing their time, their energy, their resources so that I could achieve a goal. And in some cases, I was playing that mentor role. Ending E found a simple, video gamey as fuck way to make me reflect on that in my own life. That's what pushed me to delete my save data, my time with the game, represented in quest percentages, and all that shit was the only thing I could give to help another player. But I guess that's what made it worth giving up. And I also just thought that I didn't want there to ever be a player that didn't have a ship to take a bullet for them. I don't know. I'm a faggot. Automata took me on this once-in-a-lifetime adventure, and in discussions with Mark, Luke, BB, or Dax, we talk about these games that just couldn't do any wrong, that were virtually irreplaceable. And whilst these games typically entered our lives at a young age, I'm honestly grateful I could still have a game like this at 20 years old. But then, Automata still raises questions. Questions about the new direction of action RPGs that bring in more elements from traditional action games. It raises questions about Platinum and how they're struggling to move out of their comfort zone and the types of problems that keep popping up across their recent catalog in a general sense, and whether they're making any moves towards changing their approach. There's a shit ton to talk about still. I mean, I'll leave you with the same thoughts I had after I completed my playthrough. To Yoko Taro, to Monica, and to the staff at Platinum that collaborated with the help of Square Enix to make NieR Automata into the success it was, after all the wait, thank you. My name has been VashTSB, and I'll see you guys soon.